All right, we are live. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this broadcast, and I call this, I call it Metaverse Weekend, and this has really been a very special weekend for me because I had the opportunity to um, speak with Black Rule Investing on Friday, had a great surprise guest with Underdog Crypto who came by to really add some light about the metaverse. And I think it's very important that we have these discussions, we talk about these topics really to share with the learning. And I hate to be rude. My name is Mfon Akpan. I am a professor, assistant professor of accounting. And the mission of this is to share. The vision is for others to really gain some ideas. So we talked on Friday about something that I thought was very interesting, and I hope this is what the takeaway is in the with the broadcast and with the video. We were talking about ideas and really talking about why we do what we do. All right, Shook Focus. Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Thanks for joining in. Thanks everybody for coming in. Really, it's important to, I think, for everybody to share. So number one, everybody has something that you can learn from. And I'm passionate about sharing what little bit I know in hopes of you gaining one thing, at least one takeaway that can impact you. And really, if you take away one thing that really sticks with you or resonates with you, I've done a good thing that really helps me. And we were talking about, I remember I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast guest was a venture capitalist. So he's somebody who invests money into startup companies. And this guy, they asked him, what does he do for fun? What are his hobbies? The guy loves to read, and he loves to listen to audiobooks, podcasts. He just consumes content. So they're asking him how many books does he read, and the guy is like, "Oh, I read 15." I think it was either 10 or 15 books a week. I mean, it was a huge. For me, it was a big number. And they were saying, "How do you get through so much content?" So well, I trained myself to listen to books at a high speed. And I thought this was interesting because he said he trained himself. If you haven't noticed, when you're watching videos or listening to audiobooks, you can change the speed on the content that you're looking at. And he was saying that he approaches reading books he approaches reading hold on. He approaches reading books with the mindset that he just wants to get an idea. He goes through the content, goes through the books to get at least one idea. And for him, if he gets one idea, that's a win. And I thought something is very interesting. So it grabbed my attention when you say, well, number one, because the guy's, a venture capitalist, billionaire, what have you. But what else drew my attention was the fact that he was saying one idea is something that can actually make him millions of dollars. So I thought this was very, very interesting. One idea could be something that could be an investment opportunity, something that could make him millions of dollars. So I'm not saying that I'm going to make you millions of dollars, but I am saying that you should approach this content or any other content, books. Go try to find that one idea. And if you get something, literally, we've got Shook Focus. Everybody was in there on Friday. It was amazing. People were asking questions, and those were ideas, and those questions, and those were gaps and things that can be turned into opportunities and things that you can work on. So I want you, I hope everyone keeps that in mind when we're talking and discussing things like the metaverse. I'm emailing our guest about the link. I'm emailing our guest about the link to join us on StreamYard. So if you see me being distracted, I am messaging with Matthadouken, who's coming in. Let me see here. He is coming in, and we're making sure we're getting everything logistically with the StreamYard. He is, and he's corrected me on this, and I love learning about this too. He's a streamer. He streams on Twitch. So if anyone is familiar with Twitch, so you go live, it's got an amazing following on Twitch where he actually will go in, well, really, sometimes he'll talk, have discussions, play video games, so people can watch him play games. He will play games with many of the people who are following him. So there's a way to be interactive in that sense, where there's certain games you can play, and you can actually certain games you can play. There he is.
Hello.
Play
Sorry
with,
about that.
connect. Hey, how are you doing, Matthadouken?
I'm
I was
doing
just talking about you. I was explaining that you are a streamer.
Yes, I am. I stream on Twitch.
Yes. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Wanted to just we were connected on Instagram earlier. I was trying to let you know I go live on Instagram to let everybody know that we'll be on YouTube, and then I go live on TikTok to let everybody know we'll be on YouTube. So that's been a great way to just bring people in and just invite people in. We've got a nice crowd right now. We've got Shook Focus Digital. He's in there. We've got some other people who are watching and streaming. Just to give you some background, I call this, I know this is your guest stream, but I'm calling this the Metaverse Weekend. I'm going to call it the Metaverse Weekend because we're streaming on Friday evening. A lot of questions, a lot of great stuff on the Metaverse, but from a, I want to say more of a crypto point of view. Now, because I had some really amazing crypto investment experts on part of the CIC, the Crypto Intelligence Committee. They were on there. I had Black Rue Investing, Underdog Crypto himself. They were in there. And now got you here. You're a streamer. You corrected me on that, and I'm letting there's the content creator, and then there's the streamer. You're a streamer, and you're coming. Really, this is good because it gives another perspective on the video games. And I'm getting excited. I'm going to be quiet. Let you introduce yourself, and then we'll get into it. So if you can go ahead, do your intro. That'd be great.
All right. Well, yes, I am Matthadouken. I do stream on Twitch, and I do make content. I make content on TikTok and on YouTube. But first and foremost, I am a student, so I have to balance each of those different personalities in my daily life. But yes, I mainly game on my Twitch and YouTube channel. I've tried getting into other forms of content creation here and there, but mainly I stick to gaming. And I came last time on this channel to talk about the metaverse and how VR is impacting the streaming and gaming sphere, along with how our interactions with certain content creators may change in the future. So I'm excited to talk some more about it and just go into depth about, the metaverse overall.
Well, this is good. But before we dive in, I want to touch on a point. Why streaming? And because you mentioned streaming, then you mentioned content creating. Why streaming? Why not content creating? Why dabble in a little bit of both? Just curious about that.
Well, streaming and content creating, even though they might be viewed in the same light, they're very two different mediums of fan interaction. So when you're making content, it's basically your passion, whatever you want to create and put out there, and then the audience receives it in their own time. But when it comes to live streaming, it's more of a one-to-one interaction with the people who support you and your entertainment value and what you're providing to them. So when I stream, it's mainly to just interact with my community and be able to talk to them live. And when I'm making my content, it's something that I find that will bring value to people on their own time, so they can just click and watch it whenever. So, for example, my content creation is mainly on YouTube and TikTok. TikTok, I make short little comedic skits, something relatable that people can watch and get a laugh out of. YouTube is a little more long form, so I try to create an episode of a game that I'm playing and provide some funny bits of memes and jokes in there. But when I'm live, it's me just interacting with my chat. And I'm funny here and there, but it's mainly just our dynamic between the people who watch me and the game that we're playing. And sometimes I play with my audience even. So I feel like the two different spheres for my content creation, it varies depending on what you're really there for. So that's the difference to me, at least.
That was good. And there were some gems, I think, that, and I want to revisit for those who didn't get a chance to view that stream and get you to elaborate. And one of those gems, which really stuck with me, was that you mentioned about talking to people. What is it? In IRL, in real life, right? And you mentioned about how you be at a cafe, you'll talk, say, hey, follow me on Twitch, take a look, check me out on such. Tell us a little bit more about, because that is really, I think, especially many people, we talk about the metaverse, we talk about the virtual world, we talk about social media, but I thought that was a gem and very interesting, talking to people in the real world to get them to join you in the virtual world.
Yeah, for content creation and streaming, outreach is paramount, I would say. If people don't know who you are, or if they're not even aware of what you're doing online, then you're going to just be talking to a bunch of nobody. So I'd say if you want to build connections to your audience, you can start in real life, IRL. So, for example, I went to a convention last year over the summer, and when I started streaming, it was really hard to get people to start watching my streams. But I noticed whenever I go out and actually make friends, they can be in the similar space. Sometimes they can even be strangers. And then you let them know, hey, I do this online. If you want to support me, that'd be awesome. And you'd be surprised of how many people don't mind taking some time out of their day to come out to one of your streams to watch some of your videos. They'll leave a comment, they'll chat in the chat. It's really not that difficult, but a lot of people want to do it the hard way without talking to anybody. And this isn't really a space to where you can be antisocial. If you want to have a community, you're going to have to learn how to interact with people. And the best place for me to start doing that is in person. And I've made a lot of longtime friends doing that. So that is what I meant by, going out of the computer in real life and actually interacting with people, because you could find some of your biggest supporters in real life.
And that was a good point. And to kind of pivot over to the metaverse, that made me think about something we call culture. So if you think about, there may be a culture shift where you meet someone, you talk to them, and say, "Hey, let's hang out in my room, in my Oculus. Let's go to my Oculus room. We can hang out, listen to some music." Or we can go into a spatial room. Meet me in Verbella Friend. So you can meet someone in real life and say, "Hey, let's hang out in the metaverse," right? And if you think about it, you can connect with people anywhere. You could be traveling in another city or state, meet somebody, and then hang out with them virtually in the metaverse. I know you were mentioning people do that in video games, Fortnite and Twitch. People, you get on exactly. And Twitch. So that was, to me, again, going back to the point I was making earlier about one idea, that one little idea, that it was huge for me, because it showed a difference in the culture and how things can pivot, and you can apply that to the metaverse, social media, etc. Shook Focus said he loved your explanation of content creation versus streaming. I did too. That was great.
Thank you.
So, you're here, you're the focus. Let's get into our discussion on the metaverse, the digital world, the digital realm. And for those of you who are watching, chime in on the chat. We'd love to get your questions as well. So go ahead, Matt. Let's hear it.
So one of the points I wanted to bring up that I think it's talked about last time was the impact on our different societal institutions, such as education. I feel like a lot of people don't really think about the future that the metaverse is proposing and how it affects certain aspects of life. And for me, I was going to mention education first, because a lot of students, because I'm a student currently, a lot of students now have realized that you don't really need to be in person to get your education. And I feel that's one of the reasons why VR was kicking off so largely in 2020, is because a lot of people didn't want to go outside. They just wanted to stay inside where it was safer. And now I feel like that trend is going to continue. And as VR continues to develop, we're going to have to develop ways to make it a little more seamless into our everyday life. There are apps on these VR machines that allow you to work from home, interact with your employees and your coworkers using something called VR desktop. So it basically takes your computer that's in front of you and puts it in VR, so you're able to do your work from your virtual reality rig. And that just got me thinking about how that would translate over into the education sector. I can already see people going to virtual reality class, taking their tests. Online tests would be harder to cheat at, because you can set up software that will detect if anything else is in the learning space. And it sounds cool when I think about it, but also worries me, because a lot of the social skills are developed at school as well. So I don't know if you'd be forced to be friends with all your classmates, and maybe, hey, after this digital class, let's go play some Beat Saber, let's go play some Fortnite. I don't know if that's how it would work, or if it would just lead to more social isolation and it cripple our social skills, because I know school is what got me most of my friends that I have today. So that was just something I was thinking of before this meeting.
Mm. And that's a good point. And you brought up the education aspect, and especially with the pandemic. And being a professor, I noticed a shift. And I'll break down what I mean by the shift. So if you think about, we go into 2019. So when I was teaching in 2019, I was in Savannah, Georgia. I was teaching. If I asked a student, do you know what Zoom is? They didn't know what Zoom was. And I'll tell us a quick story about a student. And you want to go back to the end of 2019, I would Zoom in guests to our class, so guest visitors. I would have a guest from Chicago Zoom in to class. Fast forward to the pandemic, we're all online. We're in Zoom in March. Actually, in my case, it was March of 2020. Had a student tell me, Professor, I'm so glad you showed us what Zoom was. I'd never seen it. So when classes had to move into Zoom, this student has seen it and had used it and was familiar with it. So I think, and this goes back to what we were talking with culture. I think that's a big thing. Culture one, you have to think about, some people may not have seen Zoom, let alone heard of it. Now you've got to use it and you've got to figure it out. You've got to figure the etiquette. Do I keep my camera on? Do I turn it off? How do I write in the chat? What do I do? So this is all culture and things you have to learn. Same thing in the metaverse. Second big challenge, which I think you made a good point, you have to think there's something called the digital divide. So what was being seen with Zoom, and when we just talk about the pandemic, which I think may cross over into the metaverse, who knows, is that not everybody has the internet at home. Not everyone will have or let's just call it, not everybody will have good internet.
Yeah.
So I had students who they couldn't be on the Zoom because they didn't have the great internet speed. A lot of people were using the internet. They didn't have enough bandwidth. So there were all of these issues. So now you got to divide, so potentially. So when we think about the metaverse and education, because now in order to get into the meta, you're going to need the internet, and you got to have some good internet to get in there. Yeah. And then you got to be able to use it. And what is the etiquette? What is the etiquette? So those are some good points. So I think the digital divide is one. You got that digital divide, and the culture with it. So that was great. But you were mentioning some other aspects about how do you see the transition? How do you see us moving into more of the metaverse?
Well, as most technologies that come out, I imagine it's going to be the people who have those money to dispose and buy, different virtual reality machines. And then eventually when technology gets better and it gets cheaper, then it's slowly going to trickle down to everybody. So I would say right now it seems slow because we're right at the beginning of it. But like vehicles, like computers, like phones, it never started out as everybody had one. It was the people who had the funds to dispose and buy something of that caliber. They could, and then once all the bugs were worked out, they're kind of like the beta testers. They get all the kinks out. Then when it's good enough for everybody to own one, the price will drop as technology improves. That's how I see it going, because that's how many other technologies in this world have gone before. How fast this transition will occur largely just depends on the adoption and the desire for people to want to use these things. A lot of the times, I know there's this one new VR headset that came out, and it's expensive. It's like around $10,000. It was displayed at CES 2022 this year, and it's expensive. And they said it was expensive because not a lot of demand is there for it. But once the demand increases for these devices, then they will eventually be able to acquire better manufacturers, and they'll be able to produce more of these and lower the price over time. So if I were to put like a time amount of how long will it take until everybody's able to use this, like as easy as like an iPhone, maybe 10 years, 10, maybe even less than 10 years, because I know the iPhone, it kind of took off, and then now I'm here with it might as well be a PC in my hand at this point. It started off as just a camera and a telephone, but now it does so much more. So yeah, I'd say less than 10 years.
Yeah, and that's a short time if you think about it. That's a short
It really
time
is.
frame from so you got to think about also from a professor standpoint. I think of blocks of 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And why I think about 4 years is because if I've got a freshman, they're going to graduate in 4 years, right? So I've got to think about how am I going to help them and what's coming when they get out into the work, force in 4 years. So if you say less than 10 years, we're about halfway there. If I've got a freshman today, when they graduate, they're going to be about halfway there. What is the world going to look like? What skills are they going to need? So, and I always go back to that student with the Zoom, because I think about skills are important, because you think about many of the students, you're exposed to things, but many students, imagine you go to a job and they say, hey, you got to interview, or you go for it, not even a job, an interview in the metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
And people may say, well, that's not, think about Zoom. I've had that student was thanking me. They were exposed to it. They have classes in it, but they had to do an internship interview on Zoom. So imagine you've never seen it before or used it. You don't know the etiquette, the volume, the things you need to have in place and how to use it. So imagine you're meeting, someone says, okay, you want this job. You got to meet in the metaverse.
Yeah.
And there's companies already that use these metaverse platforms. Verbella Frames is a big one, where companies, instead of using Zoom, they use this a virtual office space. So I think skills are important. I think that's a good one with the time frame. Even 10 years, you have to think it's a shorter, because once you even get halfway, we're going to be halfway closer to the full adoption, at 10 years. So, or saturation, however you want to look at it. So I think that's a good point. How is this going to, so granted you're a student, but you're a great streamer. Just like Shook Focus was saying, you did a great explanation of streaming versus content creation. Where do you see that moving? How do you see these interactions going with streaming, and if you want to talk about content creation?
Well, to me, I would say, okay, so whenever the pandemic first started, not a lot of people, well, there were a lot of people that were doing streaming, but we saw a spike in online streamers and online content creators. And that was because more people were spending time at home, more people were spending time in front of their computer. So you had more opportunity to adventure on different websites. So as time goes on and people are getting more in tune with technology these days, I consider myself very lucky, because when I was a child, I was always in front of the computer. So I wouldn't say I was, ahead of the curve from everybody, but I knew some things that people didn't know until this year when I was in like middle school. So I just see that exponentially growing. More people are going to become computer types, and as how that affects content creation and streaming, I just see those avenues for advertisers, for different businesses, and for startups, and for just people who want to do content creation. It's not going to stop. I see YouTube and Twitch becoming the new forms of just how people consume media every day. We used to always stand in front of a television. I remember as a kid, I used to watch TV every day, and now I don't remember the last time I've watched live television, except when I go home to watch sports. But these are the new forms of content absorption, content watching. So I think more people will be getting into it. More people will be using it. More companies specifically will be using it, and they already do today. But I just see that being like the norm. I don't know how television and older forms of media will be affected. They might. I'm sure they have plans on doing a pivot into the internet form of content creation in their business plan, but I feel like it is the new form of media for the future. And it's a lot has to do with the freedom of it. You know, I turn on the TV and I have to watch whatever's live. I can't pick what I want to watch today unless if I pre-recorded it. But who wants to do that? So when I'm on the computer, I see, oh, there's this cooking show I can watch. I just pull up the playlist and look, and now I have a whole season of cooking that I can just watch whenever I please. I don't have to wait for commercial break to be over because the commercials I can just pause, or I can do something else while I'm watching the commercials and then pause my show when I get back. It's the freedom of the internet is what to me is going to cause this replacement from older forms of media. That's where I see the future going.
That's a great point. And I don't know if you've heard of a content creator on YouTube, Ryan's World. Is Ryan's World?
Yes. Is he the toy creator? Like the children's toys?
The toy creator, I think he's, from what I understand, is the number one YouTuber, highest paid YouTuber.
Yeah.
I think last year or has that current title, and he's in, I think, third grade, going into the third grade. And, it's interesting because you think about, you made a great point. A lot of people, you don't watch cable. You may ask someone, what is cable? They're like, well, you don't watch cable. People stream. Beyond streaming, you've got YouTube. And for me, as a professor, educator, I think it's tough. If I were a student today and you see 7-year-old, you see, who is it, Mr. Beast, you see all of these content creators making more money than CEOs. Granted, they're at the higher end of the scale. So I think Ryan, he made over $200 million, something like that.
Something like that. A lot of money.
Yeah, I think he has 10 channels. So across those channels, you see that, and then you think about somebody who's gone and they're a CEO. They've been going to school. They've been working 80-hour weeks for 20 years. And a third grader is making 3-5 times more than they are from opening toys. Now, I'm not minimizing, but I'm just saying, as if I were a student or someone, and you see this, this is a reality. It's a hard pill to swallow when you say, you think about, well, why am I not learning to content create, or why am I not moving into those areas? So I think I see more and more of that. I think definitely there's going to be more and more content creators, streamers, more moving into that area because it's lucrative.
Very. Right.
And not everyone is making 200 million, 50 million, but you have to think of the percentage that are making 6 figures, 200,000 and things of that nature, and then moving into that space and the value it has. I was reading about Ryan's. You may think I'm a fan, but I love the business aspect of it. And from what I was reading, Amazon, if you're making toys, you're not advertising on TV or somewhere else. You're getting your toy, getting him you're paying Ryan to open up that toy because he's got more people watching than people who watch on streaming. There's certain streaming stations that have less followers than or less viewers than Ryan. So I think that's a good point. What's the tie-in with the metaverse?
So I see these forms of media that we have on the internet already as like a two-dimensional form of what the metaverse would be. The metaverse to me would be like a three-dimensional form of our internet. So, Ryan's toy reviews, great content creator, but if he were in the metaverse and people could actually try these products at their own homes before they want to buy it in real life, that would be a possibility. It's funny because the term metaverse, a lot of people have different images that pop up into their head, but the main one that pops up into my head when I think of it is just the virtualization of everyday life. So a lot of people look at it more as, oh, I can interact and game with my friends, people in my community. Some people see it more as, oh, I could go to work and not have to sit behind a desk. I can actually do it in VR. But I just say it's everything. It's everything that you think of you can do in real life, translated over digitally. And so that includes content creation. What would VR metaverse content creation look like? I don't want to put it into a box and just say, oh yeah, it's going to be gaming. It's just going to be YouTube videos, but in VR. So I would define it as things that you would pay for in real life, but in virtual reality. Because we already talked about how people are buying real estate in virtual reality. Physically, you can't sleep in your own house, but there's a reason why people want these things. They want it for other reasons than just to lounge on their bed. They want to have a prime location, maybe next to a celebrity, or they just want the status of knowing they have something, which a lot of people buy things in real life for that exact same reason. So people can be entertained in real life. People can be entertained virtually. It's things like that make me still wonder, how far can it go? That's what I'm wondering. How far can it go? In my head, one of the visions I had was, I might have mentioned this before, but like virtual bars and virtual clubs. It's not really a thing right now because people might think the idea is, a little bit silly, but I can't get this image out of my head of just waiting in like a virtual line to get into like some venue because maybe somebody's performing there, or you just want to hang out and, your friends all live across the world, across the country, but you can meet at this one place and actually interact with each other. And there might be some sort of currency in your virtual account that you have to pay before you get in. If you don't pay, then it won't allow your avatar to pass the threshold. That is an image in my head that I think it will become reality. That's a picture that I think will become reality, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm still waiting for that day. So yeah.
You're a smart guy. It already exists. So if you go to the Sandbox, Snoop has his land, but also Snoop throws parties, and they sell tickets. So you can buy, it's an NFT ticket, which is around, and from the last time I checked, either they were almost sold out or close to being sold out. And they were going around, I think, $3,000 for this ticket. And what it does, it allows you access to Snoop's virtual parties at his house, in his space. So, and he'll be there. So he has his whole avatar and everything. So he's there, you're with Snoop, other celebrities, other people in this party. Now you pay to have access, so you get invited and you can actually go to it, interact, talk to Snoop virtually, not in person. I mean, well, not face to face, but your avatar is talking to his avatar, so you get that access. So that exists. I know Steve Aoki, who's a EDM artist. He has his land is right near Snoop's, so you can go there. But I don't know what event. I can't speak on the events and things that he has, but I know he has his land there in the Sandbox. To your point about the currency in the Sandbox is sand. So you do your transactions in sand. Atari, if you go in the Sandbox, they run casinos in the Sandbox. So you go in there and you can go to the Atari casinos and gamble and things like that. Wow. On the flip side, which is interesting, see, all of these worlds, there's different worlds, but there's not a connection. So to your point about going to the bar or hanging out, you can do that. There's a couple of ways. With Oculus already had, if you have your Oculus, you can, you have your own personal meeting space. So you can invite people in, listen to music. You can watch movies in it. You can go to Netflix VR, watch movies together in a VR space. But beyond that, if you just want to have an experience on your computer without the headset, you can go to the Sandbox, hang out with Snoop if you want to pay the price for that. The other is a platform called Spatial. Spatial is a free platform, and they're actually, it's a company that's out of New York. And they originally started more of a enterprise where they had a space where they'll scan you. So you log in, free to log in. It'll take a picture of you and make this avatar similar to the the Oculus, that it's just up to your waist, but it'll have your face on this avatar. You're in a room. They've added new features where you can meet someone. So let's say, for example, we want to meet in the bar. Mm-hmm. They have a room, or it's like a restaurant bar environment. We can go in that bar environment and meet each other. And you can have a whole bunch of friends go in and meet with your avatars in that bar. You can walk around, go to the table, go to different spaces, and then strangers pop in. So then, I've looked in there, I've gone in there with my avatar, then you'll see someone just pop in, and if they want to talk to you, you can talk to them. If not, they ignore you. So you can go into those different rooms. What they've expanded their business model to is now they have spaces where they're NFT art galleries. So if people want to display their NFTs, you can go into these rooms and virtually look at their NFT art gallery. So these things are there. They're there, but the challenge, I think, right now is they're all decentralized. There's not one big platform. I can't go from Spatial to the Sandbox, or jump from the Sandbox to decentralized. They're all separate platforms, and then you have your own different avatar and things like this. So it's not like I can travel with one avatar to all of these spaces. So I think that's a big challenge, but those things are there. And I think it's interesting. One thing is, if you go into places like the Sandbox or Decentraland, it just boggles my mind, the money. I mean, people are, those tickets for Snoop or to buy land next to Snoop, hundreds of thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars for the tickets. Where's the money come? I want to know. I want to get some of this money. How can we get some of the money?
Yeah.
It's that's the interesting key. you see all of these transactions, and you see these, they're doing another land sale in the Sandbox, and people are hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy the land. So what do you think about music and NFTs and the metaverse? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like I said, I'm still getting accustomed to NFT culture, and along with crypto, I only own a couple percentages of Ethereum right now, so I'm still getting used to that. In that aspect, like I said, I focus mainly on the gaming side, but I do see those things becoming useful in the future along with the metaverse. And I know I talked about original artwork being NFTs in the future. NFTs are the artwork of the digital world, and music as well. I'm sure music could be sold, and if not, is already sold as NFTs. Am I right? Okay, that's what I thought. I thought I heard that from somewhere. But the you were mentioning how people want to buy this land around these certain creators and why. Not, I mean, how they have money. I know I'm not the one buying land, so they must have the money already. But the why aspect, it reminds me of a story back when the internet was new, and this young man in college wanted to figure out a way how to pay for his college tuition. So he
Mhm.
opened up a web page, and
Uh-huh.
he allowed people to pay him to advertise on that web page, and it was called like $1 per pixel, and there were like 1 million pixels on this web page. And so people were reaching out to him because this caught on in the news, I guess, and they were paying for every pixel of that webpage to put whatever they wanted on it. And eventually, he sold out. He was able to afford his college tuition, but the message there was, if you have enough attention pointed towards something, and people assume it's going to, generate revenue for themselves, that they are going to invest into it. And so I'm assuming these people who are investing in these plots of land are seeing out in the future that one day this is going to be definitely worth a lot more than I buy it for. And whether they're correct or not, only time will tell. That's what I say. But I definitely understand why these people are so eager to jump on this opportunity, because it's new, it's fresh, it's never been done any time in the past. So if I had the money, I would too. I definitely would.
I think you made a good point about that, especially when we look at you were talking about the web page and the pixels and what is this thing you can't eat it. What is it? An elephant with one bite. You gotta take one bite at a time if you want to try to eat that whole elephant. And I think that's a good point, because understanding how these things work, and like you said, putting your focus into it, I think that's very important, especially in the time we're in right now. Technology it's moving so rapidly. There was at the beginning of the 20th century, they called it if I'm saying this properly, the 2020 rule for technology. Now the professor part of me is coming out. And what that and what that meant is, it took 10 years to develop a technology, and like you said, 10 years to adopt it. So when they talked about, I guess the example is color TV. I mean, this may sound strange because it wasn't before. At one point, there wasn't color TV. There was only black and white. But it took 10 years for them to develop the color TV. And then it took 10 years for people to adopt it, for just about everybody to have color TV. But when you think about it, many people measure, or when you think about economists, a generation is 20 years. So you think about that 10 plus 10, that means it's a whole generation before a whole new technology is adopted. Now, if you talk to technologists, scientists, that 10 or that 20 year gap, if you look at the development of computer processing speed, at one point they would argue, they would say it's a year. Some people say it's 10 months. That the speed, when you think about processing speed moving forward, regardless of whether it's 1 year, 10 months, or even less than it, that is a rapid change in the technology. So I think that was a good point. So when you think about these things, shifting ideas, learning, focusing on it, I think a lot of times things are moving so fast, we might not be able to, you might not be able to master it, but you can focus in on one area of it and understand it and learn about it and really take something away from it. So going back to that whole one idea point, and I want to just say one more thing. I talked about this in another stream, and I encourage everyone to look this gentleman up, because in my opinion, he is one of the great geniuses. So if you're familiar with Netflix, one of the founders of Netflix is Reed Hastings. He's the co-CEO, one of the co-founders of Netflix. I think, in my opinion, the man is up there with, I'm not Steve Jobs, so a lot of people might get angry and say, Reed, I'm not taking away from Steve Jobs, but I think if you talk about underrated CEOs and things, that I think he's underrated, he doesn't get the credit due, because he, and this goes to focusing and looking forward. Netflix was making its money on DVDs, right? Yeah. He saw the internet, we were going to move to broadband. This may blow a lot of people's mind. Before 4G broadband, there was 3G and 2G internet. You couldn't stream. But he was like, hey, we got to move into this streaming. We got to develop content. We got to move into this area. And he was focused on this idea. Internet is people are going to be having 4G, broadband, streaming. No one has it now, but people will. We got to focus on it. People at his company thought he was crazy. They wanted to get rid of it because they were saying, look, nobody has broadband internet. Everybody is watching movie DVD. We're making money on DVDs. Why are we going to spend money on something no one has? So he had to fight for it. Now look at Netflix now. It's streaming. So, you think about these things. You were talking about web pages and pixels, and it was just blowing my mind. I'm like, wait a minute. You think about it, how the technology has changed. So I think that's important, especially when we look at these things like the metaverse. I think it's and we talk about VR, the metaverse, and how these things come together. And even with what you're doing, streaming and content creation. I'm just going to tell you, a lot of people say, well, why are people, why are you streaming? Why are you doing content create? It's a job. That's what people do for a living. And it made more money than CEOs, so and as a professor, I got students that are like, well, hey, I'm making content, I'm doing this and what can I say? What can you say? There's the data. You can go and look, hey, so a third grader is making $200 million. Mr. Beast is making $50 million a year. What are your thoughts on that as a student? And I want to, we're getting close to our time, so I want to be respectful of that. But what are your thoughts as a student? You're in both worlds. I'm a little bit removed from that, but you're in both of these worlds. What are your thoughts on the content, school, education, things of that nature?
Mhm. Well, first, you are also a fellow content creator now, so welcome. But yeah, okay. So growing up, I used to always watch people make content. This was back when YouTube was it was small. It wasn't as big as it was today. It wasn't as small as when it first started. It wasn't it YouTube started off as a dating website. So it wasn't a dating website, but they just started getting into online content through gaming and music videos and stuff of that nature. And the top jobs of that era were, become a police officer, scientist, firefighter, whatever it was. And now today, the top job careers that all these children want to be is YouTube, streamer, online content creator, because of the opportunity that's out there. It doesn't surprise me. This is why so many kids want to do it, because unlike certain other fields in life, you just have to have entertainment value, and anybody can do that. You don't even have to go to school to have entertainment value. I see these kids going out to malls and interviewing people, and they get hundreds of thousands of views because people want to watch that. So it doesn't surprise me that that is the top career choice of kids these days. And as somebody who started it off the traditional route, I went to high school. I wanted to go into engineering, realized I didn't want to do engineering. And I want to also focus on online content creation, because this is still, even though it might seem like it's oversaturated, it is still very new and very fruitful for those who want to get into it and thrive. And so I knew I would not be able to forgive myself if I was 80 years old and I never tried to do something in the content creation space, because I still don't know where it's going to go. I still don't know where it's going to end up. I see where it is now. It's very profitable if you're successful at it. You just have to work hard and be diligent. And so right now, juggling both the traditional route of school and the newer route of content creation, it's not easy. For all those students who are out there doing both, my prayers go out to you, because I know it's not easy having to focus on two things at once, but you really have no reason not to. You really don't. I'm a firm believer that everybody, no matter who you are, has some value and content they can provide to others. And so me getting into the space, it was an easy decision, but I'm still having to work at it every day. For those who are watching and want to get into content creation, I say go for it. There's no time like today to start. I would have started 10 years ago if I could, but I didn't. I didn't realize what I was missing out on until a couple years ago. So this is where I am now, and I don't regret anything. It does make, me balancing my school and my online life, it does make it a little harder, but it's nothing that I can't handle. So yeah, I firmly believe that this is a new legitimate career that many kids are recognizing today that they can do. And I've heard some colleges are even starting to offer content creator courses, which if you told me that in high school, I would have been like, whoa, would have no idea that would even be an option. Because when I was a kid, my mom didn't know what a content creator was. She just thought I liked watching people play Minecraft on YouTube. She's like, why do you like watching that so much? I was like, I don't know. It's fun. It's fun. And to see where it came to today, uh yeah, young Matthew would just be shaking his head like, wow, we should have started now. We should have started back then. So yes, it makes a complete sense why it's so popular to me right now.
And that's a good point. When you mentioned colleges, there's esports teams,
Yeah.
and many college, and it's pretty commonplace. Like you have a basketball team, and you've got your esports team as well, and scholarships to go to school, and you're playing video game. Really, that's what it comes down to: playing video games. And I think that you think about FaZe Clan. That's a publicly traded company now where you can invest in these esports players, teams. But one thing that I wanted to say, and I think that was a great point, because you mentioned that, you encouraged me, and I got to give credit to you, give credit to the CIC, the Underdog Crypto, Crypto Red Dad, Blue Dad, Black Root, everyone there, really to encourage me to look more at content creation as a business, which it is. And as a professor, I couldn't, at this point, I get into it, I learn as much as I can, because how am I going to stand in front of students your age? I don't know anything about this business, and you've got individuals, millions of dollars being made, you know? And so it prompted me to take it very, very seriously and to dive in and learn as much as I can so I can give back in a different perspective to students and talk to them about it. And the confirmation, I had one of those, I was watching, you know, TV. If anybody's seen that TurboTax commercial where the lady is, the lady's playing video games and she's asking the lady, well, can I get a deduction for this? And then the guy's in the woods and he's like, well, I stream in 30, you know, my survival streams are in 38 different countries and I live in you got to understand it. And in my opinion, the way my brain to understand, I got to get in and do it, you know, and I've been doing it, but you guys, you've inspired me to take it to another level to give to my students. So when I get up there and I talk about it, like, yeah, you know, this is how this works. This is, you're right. This ties into you know, I can really relate and get that tie in. And I feel like I'm giving that, like you said, that value. So I really appreciate that. And that's a good point. Same thing with NFTs, same thing with crypto. I'm in there. I bought my NFTs. I've gone in, I'm in the Sandbox. I'm in all of these places. Because if I'm going to talk about it, I'll get you. What is it? You got to be about it in some extent.
Yeah, be about it.
You know, and I may not be the expert, but I've gotten in the water. You know, I put my toe in that water, so you know, and I have a perspective on it, so I can really talk about it and explain the process. So keep it up. It makes sense to me, you know, and like I said, we talked crypto intelligence community, Underdog. These guys they're content creators. I mean, they are made, and it's their business, you know, and it's part of their. It's for many of those who it's not their full-time job, but it is another job that it's a business that they have. Mm-hmm. So and the rewarding thing about it, I really think, is that you're able to connect and touch people and really share ideas and information in ways you couldn't imagine. So I want to be respectful. We're 2 minutes over. Matthadouken, can you tell them how to reach you, how to get in touch with you? This has been great. You know, share your info.
All right. Well, I am Matthadouken on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch, and Matthadouken on YouTube. I make mainly gaming videos, so if that's not your cup of tea, I understand. But I do enjoy coming onto this show and just talking about the future of our society. That's basically what this is, the future of society and how our interactions between people is just so dynamic and it is changing every year. I love to see the progress we make. It's just all exciting to me. And thank you for having me, Mfon. I think that's all I got. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. You've got to come back. And really, I think it's a lot of great feedback. And I guess I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I think it'd be good, like Shook Focus was saying, your explanation on content. Hey, thank you, Shook Focus. His feedback on your content creation. I want you to come back and talk about, you know, streaming, content creation, maybe show us a little bit about what you do, you know, share, yeah. Go live, do a stream. I think that is very valuable. That was a gem, again, talking some more about how in real life, You know, you're connecting with individuals, and like we talked about that one idea. So I think that was really good to shed some light on the differences. So want to have you come back with that. I want to thank everyone. We got Shook Focus. We got everybody who's in watching. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
This will be the full length. The video will be posted next week. So it'll be posted next week on YouTube. Thank you so much.